Stop scrolling. Stop waiting. Stop lying to yourself. The person staring back in the mirror is the only thing standing between you and your dreams, your old self. The fears, the excuses, the comfort is killing your future. And the truth, that old self must die today, no excuses. The person you are today, right now, is the single biggest obstacle standing between you and the life you want. It's not your boss, your circumstances, your family, or the economy. Those are all convenient stories your mind tells you to explain why you haven't made the changes you know you need to make. The truth is, the only thing truly holding you back is the version of yourself that exists right now. The habits you cling to, the fears you entertain, the excuses you whisper to yourself every day. They are all barriers you have created. And here's the harsh reality: if you want a life that is bigger, richer, and more meaningful, you cannot carry that old self with you. You must face it, confront it, and eliminate the patterns that have kept you small for so long. Your old self thrives on comfort, on the familiar, on the predictable. It loves routines that waste your time, conversations that don't challenge you, and beliefs that justify mediocrity. It is addicted to safety and convenience because comfort never risks failure, embarrassment, or disappointment. But comfort also never brings growth, wealth, or power. If you allow your old self to continue running your life, you will continue to repeat the same results over and over while telling yourself you deserve more. The paradox is that you can desire a better life, but if you remain the same person, your desires will always be greater than your reality. Desire alone does not change circumstances. Action does. Transformation does. The old self is sneaky. It doesn't always appear as laziness or procrastination. Sometimes it hides behind rationalizations. I'm too tired. I don't have time. I'll start tomorrow. Or it's not the right moment. Every one of those excuses is a leash that keeps you chained to the past. Each one is a voice whispering that you are not capable, not ready, not worthy. And every time you listen to it, you strengthen the part of yourself that wants to stay small. Real growth comes when you learn to recognize these lies and act anyway, even when your mind is screaming to stay in its comfort zone. Your old self also carries fear like a badge of honor. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of judgment. These fears are what stop people from stepping into their potential. But fear is not the enemy. Fear is a signal, a compass pointing toward the areas where transformation is most needed. The more you resist fear, the more your old self gains control. The moment you step into fear, the moment you act despite it, is the moment your old self begins to die. Courage doesn't eliminate fear, courage acts in spite of it. And the more you practice courage, the smaller your old self becomes. Another thing to understand is that your old self is attached to identity. It is tied to the stories you tell about who you are and what you are capable of. I'm not a morning person. I'm bad at math. I'll never be a leader. These are all chains forged by your old self to keep you safe from the challenge of growth. But identity is malleable. Who you are does not define who you can become. Every choice you make, every action you take outside of old habits chips away at that false identity. Step by step, day by day, the old self loses its power. The key is awareness and action. Awareness alone is not enough. You must also act. You must look in the mirror and see the version of yourself that is holding you back, and then take deliberate, consistent steps to replace those habits, thoughts, and excuses with behaviors that align with the person you want to be. Small decisions, waking up earlier, learning a new skill, making uncomfortable calls, saying no to distractions, compound over time. Each one weakens the old self and strengthens the new self. Remember, your old self is not going to willingly step aside. It fights for survival. It clings to excuses, comfort, and fear because it thrives on mediocrity. To reach the level of success, wealth, and fulfillment you desire, you must be willing to confront it head on. You must identify the habits, beliefs, and excuses that define your current limitations and commit to replacing them with deliberate action. Only then can the old self truly die, making room for the person capable of achieving what you once thought impossible. Excuses are the silent killers of success. They may seem harmless at first, subtle little thoughts we whisper to ourselves. I'll start tomorrow. I don't have enough time, or it's not the right moment. But make no mistake, every excuse you allow yourself to believe is a decision to stay where you are, trapped in mediocrity. Excuses are not just thoughts, they are habits. Every time you give in to one, you reinforce the behavior that keeps your old self alive and your dreams dead. If you truly want to transform your life, if you truly want to rise above the ordinary, you must recognize that excuses are a luxury you cannot afford. The moment you accept an excuse, you are telling the universe that your goals, your vision, and your life are negotiable, and nothing in the world will respect that. The reason excuses are so dangerous is that they make failure feel comfortable. They allow you to justify inaction, to avoid responsibility, and to blame circumstances for your shortcomings. If only I had more resources. If only I had more time, or if only someone would give me a chance. These statements sound reasonable, even rational, but they are the language of defeat. Every successful person you've ever admired knows this. Circumstances rarely dictate outcomes, but decisions and actions do. Excuses are the opposite of decision. They are a retreat from responsibility, a refusal to confront reality, and a refusal to step into your own power. Excuses also have a sneaky way of building a false identity. Over time, they convince you that limitations are permanent. You start telling yourself stories. I'm just not that kind of person. Or people like me don't achieve things like that. These stories are comforting lies. They protect your ego from failure, but at the cost of your potential. They allow you to stay in a loop of half effort, half dreams, and full regret. Every excuse you tell is like putting a chain around your future, slowing it down until you forget what you were even chasing in the first place. But here's the truth. No one ever achieved greatness by making excuses. No one ever created wealth, influence, or impact by waiting for perfect circumstances. Every person who rises above mediocrity understands this reality. Excuses are optional, results are mandatory. You may not control everything in your environment, but you always control your response. That control is where power lies. If you can master your excuses, if you can take full ownership of your decisions, your time, your effort, and your growth, nothing can stop you. The moment you stop blaming and start acting is the moment your old self begins to die. The power of eliminating excuses is not just in taking action. It's in reclaiming your confidence and your self-respect. Every time you do what you said you would do, despite fear, discomfort, or uncertainty, you send a message to yourself that you are capable, that you are responsible, and that you are committed. That message accumulates day by day until you become unshakable. No longer do you need motivation to push you forward, because your integrity, your discipline, and your refusal to accept excuses drive your actions. Excuses are replaced by solutions, and hesitation is replaced by momentum. Eliminating excuses also changes how others see you. People respect those who do not make excuses. They follow those who take responsibility, act decisively, and consistently produce results. Excuses are not only a personal problem, they're a social problem. They diminish credibility, destroy trust, and limit opportunities. If you want to open doors, attract the right people, and command respect, you must start by eliminating the language and the thought patterns of excuses from your life. The journey to success begins with one principle. Take 100% responsibility for your life. Not 90%, not 50%, not just when it's convenient, 100%. No excuses. Every time you catch yourself making an excuse, recognize it, name it, and replace it with action. Replace hesitation with courage. Replace doubt with confidence. Replace blame with accountability. This is the only way your old self dies and your new self, the one capable of achieving extraordinary things, begins to rise. Transformation does not come to those who seek comfort. Growth is born in the uncomfortable, in the moments when you push beyond what feels safe, easy, or familiar. The truth is, your old self is comfortable and your new self demands discomfort. The habits, routines, and mindsets that have kept you safe, predictable, and small must be sacrificed if you want to evolve into the person capable of achieving your biggest goals. Transformation requires a price that many are unwilling to pay, and that is why so many people remain stuck, frustrated, and dreaming of lives they will never live. The question is, are you willing to pay it? Are you willing to sacrifice the familiar for the extraordinary? Every transformation begins with sacrifice. Sacrifice does not always mean losing something permanent. Sometimes it means giving up temporary pleasure for long-term gain. It means saying no to distractions, to comfort, to the things that make life feel easy but accomplish nothing. It means giving up old habits that have been holding you back. Whether it's late nights spent scrolling, complaining about circumstances, or remaining passive while opportunities pass by. If you are unwilling to let go of these things, if you insist on holding on to the familiar, your new self will never emerge. You cannot carry the old self into a new life and expect different results. The two cannot coexist. Sacrifice is also about embracing discomfort as a teacher. Your old self avoids hard work, difficult conversations, and challenges because they are uncomfortable. But discomfort is the signal that growth is happening. Every time you stretch beyond your comfort zone, you weaken the hold of your old self. Every time you face fear, rejection, or uncertainty, you strengthen your resilience, confidence, and capability. Real transformation does not happen in easy, safe spaces. It happens when you are willing to endure short-term pain for long-term gain, when you embrace the hard work that your old self refuses to do. Another aspect of sacrifice is the willingness to leave behind toxic influences. Your old self clings to people, environments, and situations that reinforce weakness, doubt, and stagnation. Transformation requires you to be ruthless with what you allow into your life. That may mean distancing yourself from friends or family who drain your energy, saying no to habits that waste time, or walking away from opportunities that feel safe but do not align with your vision. The sacrifice of comfort is not always about physical effort. It's also mental and emotional. It's about choosing growth over familiarity, courage over fear, and vision over satisfaction with mediocrity. Transformation also demands consistent, deliberate action. It is not enough to make a decision and hope things will change. Your old self will resist, complain, and sabotage your efforts at every turn. Discipline is the bridge between who you are now and who you want to become. Sacrifice, therefore, is about creating systems and habits that enforce action, even when motivation fades. It's waking up early, working harder, learning faster, and refusing to quit, even when progress seems slow. Every small, consistent act of sacrifice chips away at the old self and builds the foundation for the new one. The process of transformation is not comfortable, but it is necessary. Your old self was never meant to carry you into greatness. It thrives on ease, fear, and delay. The new self, the self that achieves wealth, influence, and fulfillment, thrives on discomfort, courage, and deliberate action. If you want to see extraordinary results, you must embrace the pain of change, the resistance of habit breaking, and the uncertainty of stepping into the unknown. Every time you endure what your old self cannot, every time you choose growth over comfort, your old self dies a little more, making space for the new self to rise fully. Sacrifice is not a punishment. It is the currency of transformation. The more you are willing to pay it, the faster and higher you rise. Growth is not optional. Success is not optional. And comfort, if you cling to it, will always be the enemy. The moment you choose to sacrifice the familiar, embrace the uncomfortable, and commit to doing what your old self refuses to do, transformation becomes inevitable, and the life you desire begins to take shape. Motivation is fleeting. It comes in waves, sometimes strong, sometimes weak, and often disappears when you need it the most. That is why relying on motivation alone will never create lasting success. Discipline, on the other hand, is permanent. Discipline is what separates those who achieve extraordinary results from those who remain stuck dreaming about a better life while doing nothing to create it. Your old self loves motivation because it is temporary and convenient. It allows you to feel inspired without taking real action. But your new self thrives on discipline, because discipline forces action regardless of mood, energy, or circumstance. It is the bridge between intention and results, and it is non-negotiable if you want to leave the life of excuses behind. Discipline is not punishment. It is the structure that allows you to achieve what your old self cannot. When you develop discipline, you create habits that reinforce your growth, habits that act as autopilot for success. Waking up early, prioritizing important tasks over urgent distractions, learning consistently, and showing up even when you do not feel like it, these are the behaviors that define disciplined people. The old self hates this because it requires effort, consistency, and sacrifice. Discipline demands action even when your body and mind resist. It demands that you push past laziness, doubt, and fear, because these are the areas where growth happens. The key to discipline is consistency. Every small, deliberate action compounds over time. It is not one heroic effort that transforms your life. It is thousands of small, disciplined actions repeated day after day. Your old self will try to convince you that missing one day, one task, or one opportunity does not matter. It will whisper, "You can start tomorrow," or "One failure doesn't define you." But every moment you indulge that voice, every decision you allow your old self to lead, you are reinforcing habits of inaction. Discipline is about saying no to these lies and choosing to act again and again, regardless of excuses, setbacks, or discomfort. Another powerful aspect of discipline is the control it gives you over your life. The old self reacts to circumstances, waiting for opportunities, luck, or motivation to arrive. The disciplined self creates circumstances, seizes opportunities, and builds momentum that cannot be stopped. Discipline is about mastery of self, mastery of your time, your thoughts, your energy, and your actions. The more disciplined you become, the smaller the influence of your old self. The more you rely on routine, structure, and consistency, the less you are swayed by fear, doubt, or the temptation to settle for less. Discipline also strengthens resilience. Every time you act despite fear, fatigue, or distraction, you prove to yourself that you are capable of more than your old self believed. Every time you choose commitment over comfort, you teach your mind and body that you are a person who gets things done, no matter the circumstances. That confidence compounds, creating an unstoppable momentum where your old self has no choice but to die. Discipline is the tool that transforms uncertainty into action, hesitation into progress, and potential into achievement. Finally, discipline is a reflection of integrity. It is keeping promises to yourself when no one is watching. It is doing what is right even when it is hard, inconvenient, or uncomfortable. Your old self avoids accountability, hides behind excuses, and justifies inaction. The disciplined self does not negotiate with mediocrity. It acts consistently, takes responsibility, and delivers results. Discipline is the foundation on which all success is built. Motivation may spark the flame, but discipline keeps the fire burning day after day until your old self is replaced entirely by the version of you capable of extraordinary achievement. Fear is not the enemy. In fact, fear is one of the clearest indicators that you are approaching growth, opportunity, and transformation. Your old self hates fear because it signals risk, discomfort, and the unknown. Fear is a natural response designed to protect you, but it becomes a prison when your old self uses it as an excuse to stay small. Every time fear arises, your old self wants you to retreat, to stay in familiar territory, and to avoid the challenges that could change your life. The problem is that everything that matters, the opportunities, the growth, the wealth, the success you dream of, exists on the other side of fear. If you let your old self dominate, you will never cross that bridge. Fear shows up in many forms: the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of judgment, or even the fear of success itself. Each of these fears is a signal pointing to areas where your potential is being challenged. Your old self will try to rationalize fear. I'm not ready. I don't have enough experience, or I might fail and look foolish. But these are lies designed to keep you small. The presence of fear does not mean you are incapable. It means you are on the threshold of growth. If you want to transform your life, you must learn to act in spite of fear, because courage is not the absence of fear. It is taking action despite it. The key to using fear as a tool for growth is perspective. Fear is an indicator that you are stretching beyond your comfort zone. The greater the fear, the greater the potential reward. Every time you face fear, you weaken the hold of your old self. Every time you act despite it, you send a message to yourself that you are capable, strong, and committed. Over time, fear stops being a paralyzing force and becomes a guide, pointing you toward the areas where your growth is most necessary. The more you embrace fear, the smaller your old self becomes, and the more confident, resilient, and capable your new self becomes. Another truth about fear is that it separates ordinary people from extraordinary people. Everyone experiences fear, but not everyone acts on it. The old self uses fear as an excuse to settle, to procrastinate, and to accept mediocrity. The new self uses fear as fuel, as a challenge to rise above limitations, and as a signal that transformation is taking place. Courage is the muscle you build by facing fear repeatedly. The more you confront it, the stronger your confidence, decisiveness, and resilience become. Fear is the doorway to your next level, but you have to walk through it. Fear also teaches discipline, patience, and focus. When you act in spite of fear, you develop the mental toughness necessary to handle challenges that your old self would avoid. Fear sharpens your awareness, forcing you to evaluate risks, plan effectively, and take calculated action. It is a natural teacher that prepares you for leadership, responsibility, and success. The old self shrinks away from this lesson, but the new self embraces it, knowing that facing fear is not optional, it is essential. Finally, the more you face fear, the less control it has over you. Your old self relies on fear to maintain its influence. It whispers excuses, justifications, and limitations. Each time you act despite fear, you strip away the power of your old self. You prove to yourself that you are capable of handling challenges, overcoming obstacles, and achieving more than you thought possible. Fear, when confronted, becomes the catalyst for transformation. It signals the death of your old self and the rise of the new self. The self that refuses to settle, that acts with courage, and that achieves results that once seemed impossible. The person you choose to become today determines the life you will live tomorrow. Your old self has habits, thoughts, and routines that limit your potential. It clings to comfort, excuses, and fear, convincing you that small results and mediocrity are acceptable. But the truth is, your old self cannot deliver the life you dream of. Every extraordinary achievement, every milestone of wealth, success, or influence requires a person capable of handling it. That person is not your old self. It is your new self, the version of you that rises above excuses, takes responsibility, embraces discomfort, and acts consistently. To achieve your vision, you must consciously decide who you are going to be and commit to becoming that person every single day. Becoming your new self requires more than desire. It requires intentional action. Desire alone is passive. It produces fleeting inspiration, but not tangible results. Your old self is fueled by desire without action, always thinking about what could be while doing little to make it real. The new self, however, turns thought into action. It knows that results are created, not wished for. Every choice you make, every habit you adopt, and every action you take either strengthens your old self or builds your new self. Transformation is a series of daily decisions compounded over time that gradually shape the person you become. Your new self is defined by responsibility. It accepts full ownership of every aspect of your life, your decisions, your habits, your results, and even your failures. The old self looks for reasons, excuses, and blame. It reacts to life, waiting for luck, opportunity, or external validation. The new self acts proactively, creating opportunities and solving problems before they become crises. Responsibility is freedom, because when you take full control, no external circumstance can determine your success. The more you commit to responsibility, the smaller the influence of your old self becomes. Another defining quality of your new self is courage. The old self fears discomfort, rejection, and failure, using those fears to justify inaction. The new self understands that fear is a signal of growth, not a barrier. It acts despite fear, knowing that every challenge faced and every risk taken builds confidence, competence, and resilience. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the deliberate choice to act in spite of fear. Every courageous decision chips away at your old self and reinforces the identity of your new self as capable, bold, and unstoppable. Your new self also values discipline and consistency. Motivation is fleeting, but discipline creates momentum. The old self procrastinates, delays, and relies on fleeting bursts of inspiration. The new self establishes routines, enforces habits, and shows up even when it doesn't feel like it. Every act of consistent discipline reinforces your new identity and weakens the hold of your old self. Over time, small, repeated actions compound into remarkable results that your old self could never have achieved. Finally, your new self is committed to growth. It seeks knowledge, embraces challenges, and constantly improves. The old self resists change, fearing the unknown and clinging to comfort. Growth requires curiosity, humility, and a willingness to fail and learn. The person who refuses to grow remains trapped in the limits of their old self. The person who chooses growth continually expands their abilities, confidence, and impact. Growth is the proof that your old self is dying and your new self is rising. Every extraordinary life begins with this choice to no longer accept the limitations of your old self, and to fully commit to becoming the person capable of achieving your vision. Your thoughts, habits, and decisions today are shaping the reality of tomorrow. The life you dream of is only possible if your old self dies and your new self rises stronger, wiser, and unshakable. This is the ultimate principle of transformation. You are responsible for who you become, and your new self will determine the life you create. The moment you let your old self die, your new self rises unstoppable. No more waiting, no more blaming, no more mediocrity. Every decision you make today builds the person you will become tomorrow. Choose growth. Choose courage. Choose the life your old self said you couldn't have.